Two notorious Liverpool brothers masterminded a drugs enterprise that covered hundreds of miles in the UK before it came crashing down. Brian and Anthony Siner were responsible for the Scouse Dave line, which flooded Gosport and Plymouth with Class A drugs. Anthony oversaw the Siner organised crime group running heroin and crack cocaine through Gosport, while Brian controlled the line, operating in Plymouth and Devon from his prison cell, where he was coming to an end of a 14-year sentence for previous drug supply offences in Liverpool. Their network saw them use drug addicts to supply at least 25 kilograms of crack cocaine and heroin in Gosport and approximately 9.6 kilograms of crack and heroin in Plymouth between January 2022 and March 2023, but their crimes began years before, with Brian and Anthony previously running a drugs trade in one area of Liverpool before they moved their illicit activities out of the city. Brian Siner found himself on the wrong side of the law from an early age. By the time he was 18, he had been handed a community rehabilitation order when his car was used in a burglary of a petrol station in Warrington in 2001. This was just an early sign of what was to come from the older brother. In 2003, Brian, living in Kensington, was jailed for 3.5 years for leading one of Merseyside's largest organised crime gangs. At the time, Brian, alongside Anthony Bushall, would steal luxury cars and sell them on, and within 18 months the organised crime group handled more than 1 million worth of stolen vehicles. The court heard how the two gang organisers were involved from as young as 16. But when two undercover police officers managed to infiltrate their network when they set up a used car dealership in the Kensington area, speaking at the time of their sentencing in May 2003, Liverpool North Area Commander Mike Landon said, "We set up an operation which was innovative in its makeup with a view to identifying and arresting the perpetrators. The officers involved were very courageous and were fully equipped to carry out their task." Chief Superintendent Langdon continued. Over 1 million worth of stolen cars were recovered, along with 300,000 worth of drugs and various household equipment. But the important thing for the community is to have these individuals off the streets. You only have to consider the way these people were driving the stolen vehicles around Kensington, usually unlicensed or disqualified. 2 years later came younger brother Anthony's first reported brush with the law when he wreaked havoc in the city centre. The then 21-year-old was handed an antisocial behaviour order, barring him from the city centre night spots over an 8-month spell in 2008. The younger of the Siner brothers was alleged to have intimidated bouncers and people enjoying a night out. The following year, Brian was hauled before the courts again for his leading role in another Kensington-based organised crime group, now known as Big Show. The notorious Hardman's empire was brought down thanks to another set of undercover police officers who infiltrated the firm. It was heard in Liverpool Crown Court how the gang would flood the streets with heroin and crack cocaine, with police simply scratching the surface when they first seized nearly 30,000 wraps of packages of drugs destined for the streets of Liverpool. Driven by greed for the good life, the gang were dripping in materialism as the gang from peddling the drugs went on to luxury flats, plasma screens, TVs, high-end cars and wardrobes full of designer gear. They included a bank clerk who broke down in tears as she was sentenced to 10 years, and a boxer seen by police as an up-and-coming hardman who dished out violence indiscriminately. An undercover officer posed as an addict on the streets for 15 months, buying drugs from the gang on numerous occasions. A surveillance team watched on and worked up the chain until they got to those at the top. By the time Brian was sentenced in November 2009, he was living in a luxury flat in Waterloo Dock, but was told he would be spending 14 years behind bars for his role in organising the conspiracy. His trusted lieutenants, talented boxer Joshua Avis, 24, of Childwall, Priory Road, Childwall, and Carl Langford, 18, of Halesbury Road, Kensington, were sentenced to a combined 21 years behind bars. Police said the gang were vicious drug dealers who stored weapons including a Mac-10 machine gun to ward off rivals. After the gang was arrested in April that year, no shootings were reported in Kensington in the 6 months that followed. A gang of yobs who plagued the area, calling themselves the Kensington Riot Squad, were the initial target in a Merseyside police operation at the time, but officers soon realised much bigger criminals were behind the street deals. Liverpool Crown Court head addicts looking to score drugs would all ring the same mobile number and be directed to a rendezvous point. The undercover officer, known as Joe Connell, on the street said on many of the occasions he bought drugs from the gang, there were lots of people waiting for the drop-off. Sometimes they would be told to meet outside a local primary school as children were making their way home. Just before Christmas in 2008, Brian Siner had his silver Audi seized by the police. In his attempts to get it back, he gave police his mobile number. That number was the same that addicts would ring to buy their racks. The drugs were bought in Holland and then brought back to Merseyside. Some were even sent through the post, where they would be stored in safe houses before being cut and packaged and sold on the streets in 10 bags. The court heard it was at this point younger brother Anthony, 22, became involved in a relatively low-level player in the organised crime group who stepped up when his older brother was arrested. While Anthony filled his brother's shoes, he relied on foot soldier Joseph Nee, at the time 23, of Shield Road. Judge David Aubrey told the gang day after day, night after night, and month after month, those desperate, secretive street deals were taking place in Kensington, destroying the heart of the neighbourhood. The addicts were driven by their next fix or rap. You were driven by greed and the good life, with total utter disregard for the welfare of your customers. There were simple money-making objects, and you had total disregard to the impact your dealings had on the fabric of society within Kensington. Within months of being released from prison in 2023, Brian was arrested, this time for his role in a nationwide scheme that saw him and Anthony joining forces again to flood areas with Class A drugs. However, this time the pair moved drugs across the country and targeted Gosport and Plymouth, operating the sophisticated Scouse Dave line. The enterprise saw the brothers target drug addicts who would sell drugs on their behalf. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary's Northern Area Serious and Organised Crime Unit led the investigation into the County Lines drug supply network, with the support of Merseyside Police and Devon and Cornwall Police, resulting in the operation being dismantled from the ground up. Throughout the course of the investigation, 4 kilograms of drugs and more than 30,000 in cash were seized by police, along with several weapons. Between the 1st of January 2022 and March the 28th, 2023, the network sold at least 25 kilograms of crack cocaine and heroin in Gosport and around 9.6 kilograms of crack cocaine and heroin in Gosport. Police targeted suppliers working in Gosport and managed to work their way up the chain of command to identify couriers, operations managers, and the 2 heads of the organised crime group, brothers Anthony and Brian Siner. Police found that Anthony oversaw the Sinner organised crime group running heroin and crack cocaine through Gosport, while Brian controlled the line operating through Plymouth from his prison cell where he was finishing his 14-year sentence. The county line had embedded itself in Gosport for several years, with officers conducting regular disruption and intervention work to target the distributors and remove drugs from the supply chain. Anthony Sinner, 38, and Brian Sinner, 41, appeared in court, along with two others last week, where they were all sentenced for their roles in the organised crime group. Anthony of Monterey Road, Liverpool, pleaded guilty to 4 counts of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and was jailed for 17 years and 7 months. Brian Sinner of Plymouth, Liverpool, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and was jailed for 15 years and 9 months. Gareth Roberts, 43, of York Road in Southend-on-Sea, Essex, pleaded guilty to 4 counts of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and was jailed for 6 years and 9 months. Roberts acted as a courier for the operation, collecting cash and delivering drugs to Gosport and Plymouth. Lee Illingworth, aged 39, of no fixed abode, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and was sentenced to 2 years in prison, suspended for 2 years, having already spent 13 months in prison awaiting sentence. He was also ordered to complete 30 rehabilitation activity days requirements. His Honour Judge Sawyer, passing sentence, said, "It's sufficient to say this was a well-organised and professional drug dealing network. It involved the exploitation of vulnerable people, mainly drug users, who were made to sell drugs on your behalf. 12 other members of the gang will be sentenced on March the 20th and 21st, 2025, for their roles in the gang. 1 further member will be sentenced on April the 7th. Please like this video, please comment, and don't forget to subscribe to my crime channel. Thank you.